Why are there so many female archers in fiction? Over the last few years, there seems to have been a rise in the number of female leads in action films and games, and a surprisingly high proportion of them seem to pick up a bow, compared with, say, a sword or an axe or whatever. So why is that? Well, for starters, there's a precedent. If you look back to ancient Greek mythology or even further, there are lots of stories and associations of female characters, gods, goddesses, etc., and bows and hunting. And some of that has to do with what bows are. Because throughout history, something like this has allowed someone relatively small to defeat a much larger opponent. Regardless of gender, physical size gives you much less advantage when you're fighting against an archer than it does in melee. And although there were some devastating historical bows which required vast strength to draw, they were only really necessary in situations with incredibly advanced armor. And in Hollywood, armor is useless. And obviously, we all know that there is significant overlap between the height ranges and strength ranges of men and women. But Hollywood doesn't. Not to mention that archery as a rule is done standing still with a nice upright back, and you can even do it in a dress without too much issue. So it was considered historically fairly ladylike, and then along comes Hollywood. And they want to start adding female characters into their action series, but they don't want them to outshine the men. And they still need to be stereotypically attractive to function as love interests, so they can't look physically imposing. And they want something that combines all of that with some ladylikeness, and they can't show them getting hit because of the Hays Code, so they keep them back in the back lines. And they use that historical inspiration and they make them into archers. And the handy thing is, as those codes started to relax, you could show them in heels and a bikini, or doing flips and gymnastics, while still being vulnerable enough to need protecting by our hero. Now, as films and games are starting to attempt to address decades of imbalance in the gender ratios, they're still not fully willing to let go of these stereotypes about skinny archers and effeminate elves, and so we're seeing a lot more female characters with bows than we are with any other equipment. And I don't mind, I love archers, I want more of them, but it's 2023, don't stop there! Give me sexy, agile archers, and hench warbow archers, and speed shooters, and trick shooters, and make them female, and male, and everything in between. Because archery is for everyone. Now, if you want to see more of this, you know where to find me.